Well, the main thing is economic blockade has almost strangled the Cuban economy. And that has primed people. They're very uncomfortable and very dissatisfied with the lack of supplies and so forth that they normally used to get and they can't get. And added to that, there's an orchestrated funding of dissident groups in Cuba living on US dollars and other sort of favors that are giving them voice where they normally wouldn't have it. There's, as far as a dictatorship in Cuba, it's not a dictatorship. I would call it more democratic than what we have in Canada. I've been a candidate in the provincial elections here in Ontario, and I lived in Cuba for a year and a half, and I followed their election system right from door-to-door enumeration through to nomination meetings through to election day. And I can guarantee you that there's nothing undemocratic about it. I have personal friends that ran as candidates. That Cuba is a victim, and if it wasn't for their socialist economy, they couldn't survive. Not with this kind of an economic blockade against them. I would like to see the Canadian government support Cuba just like the 1.5 million visitors that go down there every year. No, the only reform that needs to be made is to get out from underneath this blockade, this economic blockade that's affecting everything that goes on in Cuba. And, of course, to get the COVID-19 under control so they can get their tourist industry back up. But people are not aware of how pervasive this blockade is. You know that a Japanese car, if it's got a certain percentage of Cuban nickel in it, cannot be sold in the United States. It's just so pervasive. And Cuba does not ban genuine economic aid. We don't have any trouble here in Canada sending down aid to Cuba. Our main problem is getting the sufficient donations to do it. But also, as far as democracy goes, I was at a nomination meeting in the municipality of Badado, a half a block from the U.S. intersection. I was looking over my left shoulder, watching two candidates vie for nomination, and saw their election by a show of hands. And then I saw the election day for the municipal delegates on election day and saw who won the election. And anybody that stands for election in Cuba must win by at least 50% plus one. Whereas in Canada, you can win with 1/3 or less. So it's to say that Cuba's not democratic is very shallow. Yes. I just happened to receive an email this morning from a man named Roberto who lives in Baracoa. He had telephoned his cousin, Paulette, who lives in Havana in the municipality of 10th of October. She told him in her neighborhood, vandals threw rocks and destroyed storefronts, and how a group of policemen were attacked by some of the peaceful demonstrators who used knives to cut the policeman, one of whom ended up with an ear torn off his head. And now vandals are going around the neighborhood attacking the homes of those who are known to support the revolution. My cousin is one of the latter. Her front door was banged on while threats were shouted at her. She's a grandmother with 2 little kids. That's what we call peaceful protesting. I'm very satisfied with my position. When I lived down there a year and a half, I had my motorcycle there, and I was all over the island, 33,000 kilometers to be exact. Most Cubans tell me I've seen more of the island than they have, but besides that, I lived with different people in different neighborhoods, a variety of people. I lived in what you would call illegally, like ordinary tourists or Cubans are not supposed to invite foreigners into their home. The idea is to protect the hotels and protect the tourists also, that there's a certain standard. But nobody ever got into trouble for my visits. But getting back to the election, I'm glad Michael brought up the point. There is only, in provincial and national elections, there is only one candidate for each position. And he's right, nominating commissions choose a candidate and put them forward. Then voting day, it's the voters that either accept the candidate or reject them. And if they reject them, the nominating commissions would have to come back with another candidate and another election. So that's how it works. But also, getting back to this thing about vandalizing, the only people that apparently have been arrested in Cuba have been vandalized. And if you noticed in the footage that none of the Cuban police was wearing body armor, no helmets, no nothing. The only thing visible is a nightstick. That's all they had to defend themselves. But there's been footages of Molotov cocktails being thrown and police cars vandalized. And arrested journalists and activists are known to be part of the foreign-driven campaign. Those who are paid by U.S. money as part of the anti-Cuban campaign. And this is why Cuba took a firm stand against these demonstrations. It's not that they were so large. We've had many larger demonstrations than that in Canada and certainly many other Latin American countries. But if you look at the way the Florida exile community was salivating at the chance that the U.S. might intervene in some way, open a humanitarian corridor, etc., it really put a difference in perspective. And then on Saturday, if you notice, there was 100,000 Cubans assembled around the U.S. embassy, in the area of the U.S. Embassy on Saturday, showing their support of the revolution. So I would say the dissident community is outnumbered by, I would guess, about 1,000 to 1 anywhere in Cuba that you go. What I want to see is the U.S. Have normal relations with Cuba, stop funding dissident organizations, and have free trade. Let Americans go to Cuba and let them see and let them decide as Canadians do with their vacations. So that is the main thing that the Cubans say themselves. If you believe the blockade is not working, then remove it. We'll live or die on our own abilities.